This is why I like to call the nafs the soul. And when we're talking about soul, we're not talking about the ruh here. We're talking about this sense of self.
Yeah.
But obviously the nafs can refer to the ruh. So we can have that ambiguity even in the Islamic tradition. But so it depends. And, the body has natural intuitive capacities within us that we can't negate. And this is where people end up making a huge mistake. For example, my intuition, like animals have intuition. It's part of us, our makeup as animals, that we intuit when something's safe and when something's not safe. That's a fundamental part of our makeup. That's not a ruhi thing, but it has aspect. Obviously, as you were saying before, they're all interconnected with these things. So we have more spiritual intuition that's connected to deeper things and more, broader things, I probably should say. But fundamentally, the body has things in it that we have to listen to. But what happens often in my clinical practice is they demonize and distrust that sense of those intuitions.
Yeah.
And you often get that question, how do I know if this is my qalb and how do I know if this is my nafs? And I say to them, look, this is how I define things, just from a pragmatic approach, is the shaytaan can play with the nafs, because the nafs can go to extremes because it's primitive and it's primitive. And so what we need to do is we need to work with it and nurture it and be there and be cautious around it and mindful, but we can't neglect its needs. The shaytaan is the capacity, and I'm not saying that shaytaan is just a psychological abstraction. No, we as Muslims obviously believe he's a reality.
Yes.
But I find it useful to look at it from a psychological perspective. Shaytaan is something that's erratic, and it wants you to take you far. Those two things. So if something's and the nafs can become erratic, and it can go far from demonic forces that that incite it to indulge and not reach for higher things. So if that notion's coming to you feels erratic and it feels it's taking you away from your nature, then you need to guard yourself against that. But if it's speaking to a deep intuitive sense of something's wrong in my life, something's not right and off, you need to listen to that, because it's speaking. And what's fundamental, it feels something that's core and deep when it's your nafs from a healthy perspective, that intuitive nafs. If it's like a bit all out there, it's more demonic. It doesn't feel like, it just feels a more like external force. Nice. Like when I see an ice cream and I just like go, and I said I was supposed to go in and just get some vegetables, that's demonic, because it's taking you away from your objective. Yeah, it feels external. It's external, and it's like drawing you away from yourself. Whilst if that's my distinction for people when they're asking, is this the nafs or is this shaytaan?
I love that. And so in some way we can begin to differentiate these different impulses and voices, maybe we can say, by their implications, by what they're kind of guiding to. Because even with the qalb and the aql and stuff like that, we believe as Muslims, and our ulama always say, is that these are not different realities. This is one substance, if you will, one jawhar, but depending on its ta'alluq, it has a qalbi kind of faculty, or it has a ruhi, or it has a sirri, whatever faculty. So it's depending on and the way I was trying to conceptualize this, kind of just thinking about it this week, was it has different language, like the qalb's language, and the aql has a language that it speaks. And so it's kind of like what you were saying, depending on the language and the implications of what it's guiding you to, you can begin to know something. I remember Shaykh Abdul Rahman Shahuri talked about the 4 different types of khawatir. There's nafsani, shaytani, malakani, and rahmani. And so how do you know them? Well, you know them by what are they guiding you to? Turning towards sin, towards zulm, or towards whatever, jahil, or is it towards ibadah? Is it towards khidmah, toward ikhlas, whatever? What's it guiding you to? You know things. And when the Prophet ﷺ teaches us to take a fatwa from our qalb, this is something that's how do you listen to that? You have to develop that kind of hearing You have to be able to hear deeply, not just with your ears and the acoustic kind of neuronal pathways and stuff like that, but it's a really deep listening. Sama' is not just a nervous system function.
Yeah.
And as we begin to really go in and be curious and listen and not be impulsive to judge.
That's fundamental. That's how we distinguish. That's how we combat the shaitan. As soon as we become contemplative, take our time, inquire, we've protected ourselves from the shaitan.
That's it.
And especially in a therapeutic, with a sheikh or with whoever's you're sitting with and working things through, there's an other as a reference as well. So you've got the counsel, but you've also got the taking the time and the inquiry and what's this speaking to?
Yes.
So even the shaitan can be a guide from that perspective because he's taking you away from something. What is it he's taking you away from? So he's actually done you a favor here.
Yeah, he'll clarify. That's probably where I have to go. If he's pulling me this way, this is where I'm going to go.
Yeah. So, so all of these are ayat, signs pointing us to what do we need. So even when the abuse, we can be abusive and we can do dhulm, but what's it really speaking to that why are we acting out like this? And to inquire and explore what's it really needing to what are you really needing here that's going to nourish and help you grow. So you bring it back to what's important.
Yeah. MashaAllah. Yeah. So at the end, really, we can say that the conception of the nafs that we're talking about is one that's nutritive, that's process-oriented, that's developmental, as opposed to one that is, I don't even know how to word it, but like toxic shame-driven and fragmenting and dissociating and self-harming. It's like that's what I'm sure you see it. I know you see it. I see it all the time. All the time. And it's like, this is not healthy. I don't care who told you that. It's affecting all of your relationships. It's affecting your work and your ibadah. You're telling me this yourself. I'm not assuming that. You're telling me my life is crazy. And I can't hold down my job. I'm having trouble with fajr and my wirid or whatever, even just basic things. I'm not fasting Ramadan. I really struggled with it. Tayyib. You're telling me that my nafs is the one who's making me do this. I hate my nafs. I should just kill myself. How do I get rid of my nafs? It's like, whoa. Let's slow this down. I think that mentality is probably driving your presentation in the first place. Let's uncouple that, because that relationship with yourself is totally unnatural. I would argue un-Islamic. Bare bones. It's not human. You
also, a very fundamental question I know that Gabor Mates asks is, if you were to imagine yourself, objectify yourself at this point, see yourself as someone else, would you do that to another human being? That's considered abuse.
Totally, absolutely.
You could go down for that sort of treatment to another. Why on earth are you doing it to yourself?
Exactly, and that's one of the clinical kind of tools or something that we can imagine your daughter telling you that you had this issue. What would you do? I would flip the world upside down to help her kind of shift that for her. How did you learn that? What happened? That's so heartbreaking for me. And now, and then they get it, and how does that feel to hear you say that? And sometimes, no, but you don't know how bad I am. Or, or, and then there's this deep stillness for a moment, and then you just let that sit. Because there is a paradox, the paradoxical relationship we can have with ourselves. And this is what I often say is the root of narcissism, in fact. It's actually this false self. We don't have a connection to our true self, which is just not like our higher reality, our Sufi, whatever. It's you. Who is Mazen? Who is Idris? Who is Fulan? Who are you essentially? And can you be real with what's coming up for you and allow your journey to unfold in the way that Allah Ta'ala wants it to unfold without you getting in the way of it?